Step 1, no carbs, no sugars. Is that right?
Keep them as low as possible because the carnivore gut is a sterile gut. Modern foods are a disaster because they are high in carbohydrates. They are very addictive. We eat them in an addictive way. That is metabolic disaster. And it doesn't matter for what reason people come and see me, whether it's because they've got headaches or asthma or arthritis, I always start off sorting the gut out. And sometimes that's all you have to do for things to drop into place.
Gut health is getting a lot of attention lately, and for good reason. If you're dealing with thyroid issues, weight gain, brain fog, or even fatigue, in 99% of cases, your gut is damaged. And most people will say, just take some fiber or take some probiotics. That will fix your gut. But that is not true. My guest today is Dr. Sarah Myhill. She's a functional naturopathic doctor with over 30 years of experience, and she's an expert in fixing chronic disease and fixing the gut. How many people do you think have gut issues without even knowing it?
Oh, I think is extremely common simply because we are not eating a correct diet. The human gut evolved over, hundreds of thousands of years to eat actually a carnivore diet, and then some vegetables came in later. It is, the human gut is much closer to a dog's gut or a cat's gut or a carnivore gut than any other gut. And modern foods are a disaster because they are high in carbohydrates, they're high in ultra-processed foods, they are very addictive, we eat them in an addictive way. And that overwhelms the ability of the gut to remain sterile because the carnivore gut is a sterile gut. And as soon as you start fermenting those foods in the upper gut, that is metabolic disaster. And the fact of the matter is anybody eating a typical Western diet with bread and toast for breakfast, cereals, orange juice, all that sort of stuff will have abnormal gut function almost without exception.
Healthy foods are the worst foods that people are eating every single day. They don't even know it, but it's secretly destroying their gut. What are those foods?
They're basically the high carbohydrate containing foods, the high sugar foods. And yes, we're told fruit is healthy for us. Yes, but remember, primitive woman's idea of fruit would have been a crab apple. You'd have a couple and that would be it. You'd have a sore gut if you had 5 or 6. And the awful thing is the fruit growers themselves know that humans are sugar addicts. And so they're developing varieties of fruit that are sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. So when I was a child, the big treat for breakfast on Christmas Day was a grapefruit, but it was so sour, you could hardly eat it, but you pretended you were really enjoying it. And nowadays, you can eat a grapefruit like you can eat an orange. It's as sweet as anything. And many fruits have been, bred and maybe to be sweeter and sweeter. And then, of course, when you crush them, when you squeeze the juice out of them, that's even more concentrated sugar. So, a litre of orange juice contains about 16 or 17 oranges. So you fill the gut with sugar. And it's worse than that, because when you eat fruit is a bag of sugar, but the outside of the fruit will be covered with yeast. That's how we make cider. That's how we make wine. And if you eat a lot of apples or a lot of grapes or a lot of pretty much any fruit, plums, they overwhelm the ability of the gut to remain sterile and they start to ferment. It's called the auto-brewery syndrome. And yeast will ferment sugar to, guess what? To alcohol. In fact, in the early days when I was getting interested in this, we used to be able to get a test done at Biolab to demonstrate this. And I would measure levels of sugar and alcohol in the bloodstream. You would then have a sugar load, 50 grams, which is typical of a diabetic glucose tolerance test, for example. And then half an hour later, measure the sugar and the alcohol again. The highest result I saw was 19 milligrams per litre. Now, the drunk driving, I believe, in this is about 30 milligrams at the moment, I think. You're not far off the drunk driving level. It's a serious amount of alcohol. And that all has to be detoxified by the liver. It make for a foggy brain. And even I know after a glass of wine, I can't function with a foggy brain. So it's modern diets that are responsible for the mess that our gut's in at the moment. For reasons of upper fermenting gut. Also because we get an abnormal microbiome with that. And thirdly, for reasons of allergy. And allergy drives many gut symptoms. So my view is that anybody eating a modern Western diet will have gut problems, whether they know it or not.
Interestingly, oatmeal is another food that is not healthy for you. Why?
It's very high carb. It really is as simple as that. So no, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, again, there are even problems with dairy products. And when the great advocate of paleo ketogenic diets, Gordon Lorraine, was asked, "Are dairy products not natural foods?" His reaction was, "Have you ever tried milking a wild bison?" So whilst dairy products may have been with us for some thousands of years, because man is intelligent, is clever, and learns to domesticate animals, it takes much, much longer than that for evolution to catch up with those sort of changes. So, as I say, we evolved over hundreds of thousands, probably millions of years, with a carnivore, Stone Age paleo diet. But the diets have changed so fast in such a short time, the gut simply hasn't caught up, and will never catch up in our lifetime, and will never catch up in hundreds of years. So we need to get the best of the old world and the best of the new world. So the best of the old world means we should be eating a paleo ketogenic diet. And the best of the new world is, I want security. I don't want a tribe, coming over the hill tomorrow and murdering me and all my family. I don't want to be cold in the winter. I don't want to be starving in the winter. I want food security. So as I say, we are in a perfect place to have the best of both worlds, the food security, the physical security, the warmth security. But we need to choose our foods very wisely. And if you have faced with a difficult choice, always ask, what would primitive woman have eaten, 500,000 years ago? And that will give you a very good clue.